The arena floor was slick with blood when the chains snapped. Commander Jake Mercer didn't wait for the crowd's roar to fade. He lunged forward, driving his shoulder into the nearest Krell warrior's chest plate. The alien went down hard. Jake twisted, grabbing the fallen warrior's plasma blade before it hit the ground. 2 more charged from his left. He rolled under their strikes and came up swinging. Queen Zarathix sat frozen in the royal gallery. Her 4 arms gripped the railing so tight the metal groaned. This wasn't supposed to happen. The ceremonial combat was meant to be a display, a formality, 3 opponents maximum. Light contact. Her human consort was supposed to demonstrate basic competence, nothing more. There were 12 Krell warriors in the pit now. Jake's blade carved through armor like it was paper. He moved wrong, Zara realized. Humans didn't move like that. She'd studied their physiology extensively before approving the marriage alliance. They were slow, fragile, limited. The human in the arena below was none of those things. A Krell captain swung a war hammer that could shatter starship hulls. Jake didn't dodge. He stepped inside the arc, too close for the weapon to build momentum, and drove his elbow into the captain's throat. The Krell dropped. Jake took the hammer. Zara's senior advisor leaned close. "My queen, should we stop this?" She couldn't answer, couldn't move. Her eyes were locked on Jake as he used the hammer to vault over a charging line of warriors, landed behind them, and swept 3 off their feet with one swing. The crowd wasn't cheering anymore. They were screaming. Poor Krell rushed him simultaneously from different angles. Perfect coordination. Textbook pack tactics. Jake threw the hammer at one, dropped to the ground as 2 others collided above him, then sprang up and snapped the 4th one's weapon arm at the elbow. That's when the arena master released the war beasts. Zara shot to her feet. "No, stop the match." Too late. The gates opened. 6 razor-spine predators bounded into the arena, each one bred for one purpose: killing. They'd torn apart fully armored assault teams in under a minute during the last exhibition. Jake saw them coming. He didn't run. He smiled. That smile sent ice through Zara's veins. He pulled something from his belt. Small, metallic, human design. Before the arena guards could react, he activated it. The device hummed. Every piece of technology in the stadium flickered. The plasma barriers separating the crowd from the pit died. Panic erupted in the stands. The razor spines leaped. Jake moved between them like water, his hands finding pressure points, joints, nerve clusters. One beast's own momentum carried it face first into the arena wall. Another collapsed mid-stride, paralyzed. The 3rd got its teeth around his arm. Jake grabbed its lower jaw and pulled until something cracked. Zara was running now, shoving past guards and advisors, heading for the arena entrance. She'd made a terrible mistake. She'd married a human to secure an alliance with Earth, a symbolic gesture, a political move. She'd married someone else entirely. The last razor spine died as she reached the pit's edge. Jake stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by unconscious Krell warriors and dead beasts, barely breathing hard. His eyes found hers across the blood-stained sand. "Sorry about the mess, Your Majesty," he said. "I got carried away." The medical bay doors sealed behind them with a hiss that felt too final. Zara paced while the automated scanners worked over Jake's body. He sat on the examination table, shirt torn, blood on his knuckles. Not his blood. The scanners beeped negative for injuries. Impossible. She'd watched a razor spine bite through reinforced combat armor 2 months ago. Jake's arm showed teeth marks and nothing else. "You need to explain," Zara said. Her translator chip struggled with the edge in her voice. "Now." Jake flexed his hand, watching the bruises fade in real time. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with how you're still alive." He met her gaze. Those human eyes, brown and unremarkable when she'd first seen his diplomatic profile, now looked different. Calculating, dangerous. I'm enhanced, military grade, Earth's Apex program. Zara's secondary heart skipped. Apex doesn't exist. We checked. Every intelligence agency in the galaxy confirmed it was propaganda. That's the point of black operations, Your Majesty. Nobody confirms them. She stopped pacing. The pieces were falling into place too fast. The alliance, the marriage proposal. Earth sent you specifically. Yes. Why? Her voice cracked the word like a whip. What does Earth want from the Dominion? Jake slid off the table. The movement was casual, but Zara's guards raised their weapons anyway. He ignored them. Earth doesn't want anything from you. We wanted you protected. Protected? From what? The Devourers. The name dropped into the room like a stone into deep water. Zara's skin went cold. That's a myth, a story to frighten children. It's not. Jake pulled up his wrist display. Images flooded the holographic space between them. Star systems, hundreds of them, all dark, all dead. This is what the Galactic Council isn't telling you. 17 sectors have gone silent in the past 3 years. No distress calls, no survivors. Just empty space where civilizations used to be. Zara stared at the data. Her hands trembled. This can't be real. The Devourers are real. They're coming, and the Dominion is directly in their path. She wanted to call him a liar, wanted to throw him in a detention cell and forget this conversation ever happened. But the data was authenticated with Council encryption codes, codes that shouldn't exist outside the inner chamber. How did you get this? Jake's expression went flat. I killed the council member who was hiding it. The guards moved. Zara raised one hand, freezing them in place. You assassinated a council member. He was letting entire species die to maintain political stability. Yes, I killed him. I'd do it again. Zara's mind raced. If this was true, if the Devourers were real and coming for the Dominion, then everything changed. But trusting a human who'd just admitted to murdering a galactic official seemed insane. Jake stepped closer. The guards tensed, but didn't fire. I know what you're thinking. Why should you believe me? Why should you trust anything I say? He pulled something else from his belt. A data crystal. This contains tactical assessments, defensive strategies, and evacuation protocols. Everything Earth has learned about fighting the Devourers. Earth has fought them. We survived them. Barely. Colony world called New Perth. They hit us 5 years ago. We lost 40 million people before we figured out how to push them back. Zara took the crystal with shaking hands. Why didn't Earth warn the galaxy? We tried. The Council buried it. Said mass panic would destabilize the political order. Jake's jaw clenched, so Earth went quiet. Started the Apex program. Started putting operators in key positions across the galaxy. Protection details disguised as diplomatic assignments. You're not here to spy on us. I'm here to keep you alive. When the Devourers come, and they will come, the Dominion needs a leader who can fight back. That's you. Zara looked at the crystal, then at Jake, then at the still displayed images of dead worlds. Her people, her responsibility. How long do we have? 6 months, maybe 8, if we're lucky. That's not enough time to evacuate. No. Jake's voice went hard. It's enough time to prepare, to build defenses, to turn the Dominion into something the Devourers can't just swallow whole. She wanted to scream, wanted to rage at the unfairness of it all. Instead, she drew herself up to her full height, every centimeter of royal bearing locked into place. If you're lying to me, if this is some elaborate Earth power play, I will personally tear you apart. Fair. And if you're telling the truth, if the Devourers are really coming, then we have work to do." She turned to her guards. "Summon the War Council. Full emergency protocol. Now." They hesitated. One spoke up. "Your Majesty, the human is my consort, and apparently our best chance at survival. Move." They scattered. Zara and Jake stood alone in the medical bay. The weight of 6 months pressed down like a collapsing star. "You could have told me before the arena," Zara said quietly. Jake almost smiled. "Would you have believed me?" "No." "Exactly. You needed to see what I really am. What humans can really do when we stop pretending to be harmless." The War Council chamber erupted in chaos. Zara slammed one fist on the tactical table. The holographic display flickered. "Silence." 14 species represented. 47 military commanders. Not one of them wanted to hear what Jake was saying. General Torvik, a battle-scarred Krell with more combat decorations than scales, pointed a clawed finger at Jake. "You expect us to believe Earth, a species barely out of their own solar system, defeated an enemy we've never seen?" Jake didn't flinch. "I expect you to look at the evidence and make the obvious conclusion. The evidence is data that could be fabricated by a child. Then explain the dark sectors. Explain why 17 council seats are empty. Explain why trade routes keep getting rerouted with no explanation." Jake expanded the holographic display. New images appeared. Wreckage, debris fields, the twisted remains of warships. "This is what's left of the Fourth Fleet. They were investigating the Outer Rim's silence 3 weeks ago. I pulled these images yesterday from a salvage drone." The room went quiet. Admiral Kess, commanding officer of the Dominion's Orbital Defense Network, leaned forward. Her crystalline features reflected the hologram's light. "The Fourth Fleet had 60 capital ships, battle-hardened crews. What could do this?" "The Devourers don't fight like we do," Jake said. "They don't care about territory or resources. They consume everything. Energy, matter, information. They hit fast, strip a system clean, and move on." Commander Venn, head of intelligence, stood abruptly. "I've reviewed every classified report for the past decade. There's no mention of any Devourer activity." Jake looked at Zara. She nodded. He pulled up another file. "That's because someone's been scrubbing the records. Council member Thex maintained a private server with the real data. When I accessed it, he tried to kill me." "So you killed him first?" Ben said flatly. "Yes." The room exploded again. Calls for Jake's arrest. Demands for his execution. Accusations of warmongering and conspiracy. Zara let it run for exactly 10 seconds before she activated the chamber's sonic dampeners. Every voice cut off mid-shout. "Enough!" Her voice carried despite the dampeners. "We're wasting time arguing about what's already done. The question is what happens next." Torvik growled. "What happens next is we throw this human in a cell and investigate his claims properly." "We don't have time for proper investigations," Zara said. "If Jake is right, the Devourers will be here in 6 months. If he's wrong, we've spent resources preparing for a threat that doesn't exist. One scenario ends in extinction. The other ends in wasted effort. Choose." The commanders exchanged glances. Admiral Kess spoke first. "What do you propose?" Zara gestured to Jake. He pulled up a new display. Star charts, defense grids, evacuation routes. "We turn the Dominion into a fortress. Every civilian world gets evacuated to core systems. Every military asset gets repositioned to create layered defense zones. We build weapons specifically designed to counter Devourer tactics." "What tactics?" Torvik demanded. "You still haven't told us how they actually fight." Jake's expression went dark. "They send swarms, millions of autonomous units, each one about the size of your fist. They latch onto ships, stations, anything with power, and they drain it. Then they replicate using the harvested matter. By the time you realize you're under attack, you're already losing. Then tapped her interface. How do you counter that? Electromagnetic pulses, wide-spectrum radiation bursts, kinetic barriers that physically prevent attachment, and most importantly, you don't let them get close. Jake highlighted several points on the star chart. We build kill zones here, here, and here. Overlapping fields of fire. Nothing gets through without getting shredded. That would require every ship in the fleet, Admiral Kess said. We'd leave the outer colonies completely undefended. The outer colonies are already dead, Jake said bluntly. You just don't know it yet. The Devourers are 3 sectors away and moving fast. Anyone still out there has maybe 2 months before the swarms arrive. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. Commander Venn pulled up refugee projections. Evacuating the outer colonies means relocating 4 billion people. Our core systems can't handle that influx. We'll have riots, starvation, complete societal collapse. Better than being consumed, Jake said. Is it? Torvik's voice was bitter. You're asking us to abandon our people, restructure our entire military, and trust the word of a human assassin. Why should we believe any of this? Zara was about to answer when the chamber doors burst open. A communications officer stumbled in, face pale, all 4 arms shaking. Your Majesty, we're receiving a distress signal. It's the colony world, Septimus 7. Admiral Kess frowned. That's impossible. Septimus 7 is in the dark zone. They went silent 8 months ago. The signal is coming through now, ma'am. Audio only. It's... The officer's voice broke. You need to hear this. He activated the playback. Static filled the chamber, then screaming. Humans screaming. Aliens screaming. Sounds that didn't belong to any species Zara recognized. A voice cut through the chaos, desperate and ragged. This is Septimus 7. They're here. Billions of them. They're eating the station. They're eating us. If anyone receives this, don't come. Don't send help. Just run. The signal died in a burst of white noise. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Jake broke the silence. That was recorded 8 months ago. It took this long for the message to reach us because the Devourers destroyed every relay between here and there. They're not just consuming worlds. They're isolating them first. Torvik sat down heavily. His claws scraped against the table. How long until they reach Dominion space? 4 months, Jake said. Maybe less now. Zara looked around the table, saw fear, saw disbelief, saw the terrible moment when denial broke against reality. General Torvik, she said, begin evacuation protocols. Commander Venn, I want every intelligence asset focused on tracking Devourer movements. Admiral Kess, start repositioning the fleet. And the human? Venn asked. Zara looked at Jake. The human who'd infiltrated her court, married her under false pretenses, and just upended her entire civilization. He's our strategic advisor. Effective immediately. Anyone who disagrees can file their objection after we survive. No one objected. The first transport ships launched 60 hours later. Zara stood in the orbital command center, watching millions of her people flee their homes. The evacuation was chaos. Families separated. Entire cities abandoned. Riots on 12 different worlds where citizens refused to believe the threat was real. She'd authorized force to maintain order. Hated herself for it. Jake worked 3 stations away, coordinating defense grid construction with Admiral Kess. He hadn't slept since the War Council. Neither had she. Your Majesty, your Commander Venn appeared at her side. We have a problem. Zara didn't look away from the view screen. Add it to the list. The other Dominion queens are refusing evacuation orders. They're calling this a power grab. Now Zara turned. What? Then pulled up communication logs. Queen Syrinx, Queen Thelmora, and Queen Vexilla. All three have issued formal challenges to your authority. They're claiming you've been compromised by Earth and are using false intelligence to consolidate control. Zara felt something crack inside her chest. The Dominion had 7 queens. Each ruled a sector. Unity was maintained through careful diplomacy and mutual respect. If 3 were breaking away now when crisis demanded cohesion, everything would collapse. Get me a direct channel to Syrinx. Now. The holographic projector shimmered. Queen Syrinx appeared, all 6 eyes cold with contempt. She was older than Zara by 2 centuries, larger, more decorated. Her sector controlled the shipyards. So the human's pet finally calls, Syrinx said. Zara kept her voice level. This isn't about politics. This is about survival. Survival from a threat we've never seen? Based on evidence provided by a species we barely know? You ask too much, young queen. I ask you to look at the facts. 17 dark sectors. The 4th fleet destroyed. Septimus Seven's final transmission. Transmissions can be faked. Fleets can be sabotaged. Dark sectors can be explained by communication failures. Syrinx leaned forward. What cannot be explained is why you would marry a human without consulting the Council of Queens. Why you would give him access to classified military intelligence. Why you would trust anything he says. Because he's telling the truth. Or because you're infatuated. Syrinx's tone dripped poison. We all saw the arena footage, dear. The way you looked at him, the way you ran to him. You're not thinking clearly. Rage flared white-hot in Zara's mind. She crushed it down. My personal feelings are irrelevant, are they? Because from where I stand, you've compromised the entire Dominion for a human who kills well. Syrinx gestured dismissively. Queens Thelmora and Vexilla agree. We're recalling our fleets. Our worlds stay where they are, and if your supposed devourers actually appear, we'll deal with them ourselves. The connection cut. Zara stood frozen. Without Syrinx's shipyards, they couldn't build enough defense platforms. Without Thelmora's agricultural worlds, the core systems would starve under the refugee influx. Without Vexilla's research stations, they had no hope of developing better weapons. Jake appeared beside her. I heard. They think I'm compromised. Are you? She looked at him sharply. He met her gaze without flinching. I need to know, Jake said quietly. Because if you're making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy, people will die. A lot of people. Zara wanted to hit him, wanted to scream that she was doing everything right, that the other queens were fools, that none of this was her fault. Instead, she forced herself to think. Was she compromised? She'd married Jake for political reasons. The alliance with Earth had made sense, but watching him fight, seeing what he truly was, something had shifted. She admired his competence, his certainty, the way he didn't hesitate when action was required. Was that enough to cloud her judgment? I don't know, she admitted. Jake nodded. There. Then let's remove you from the equation. What? He pulled up a tactical display. The other queens don't trust you because of me. So we give them proof that doesn't come from either of us. How? We send a scouting mission to the edge of Devourer territory. Get visual confirmation. Live footage they can't deny. Jake highlighted a sector border. There's a relay station here, barely inside the danger zone. If the Devourers are as close as I think, we'll get images within 48 hours. Admiral Kess joined them. That's a suicide mission. Nothing that goes into that sector comes back. I'll go, Jake said. No. Zara's response was immediate, instinctive. She saw Jake's expression shift and realized she'd just proven Serex's point. Compromised. She forced herself to breathe. You're too valuable as a strategic asset. We need someone else. There is no one else trained to handle devourers, Jake said. I go, or the mission fails. Ven spoke up. He's right, Your Majesty. None of our scouts have experience with this enemy. Zara looked at the tactical display, at the dark sectors spreading like cancer across the galaxy, at the countdown showing 4 months until the swarms reach Dominion space. Every calculation led to the same conclusion. Jake had to go. But if she sent him and he died, she'd lose the only person who knew how to fight what was coming. If she didn't send him, and the other queens refused to mobilize, billions would die before the Devourers even arrived. Prepare a fast reconnaissance ship, Zara ordered. Stealth configuration. Full sensor suite. Jake pulled up mission parameters. I'll need a pilot who can handle evasive maneuvers at combat speed. You'll have one. Zara activated her command channel. Lieutenant Marcus Kane, report to Hangar Bay 7 immediately. Jake raised an eyebrow. Another human? The best pilot in the fleet. He volunteered for deep space assignments specifically because he was bored with safe missions. Zara met Jake's eyes. If anyone can get you in and out alive, it's him. Within the hour, Jake stood in the hangar bay beside a sleek reconnaissance ship painted sensor-absorbent black. Lieutenant Kane was already running pre-flight checks, moving with the casual confidence of someone who'd never met a flight path he couldn't handle. Zara approached. Her guards stayed back, giving them space. If you don't return, she started. You'll manage, Jake interrupted. You're stronger than you think. That's not what I was going to say. He waited. Zara struggled with words that wouldn't come. Finally, she just said, Don't die. I'll do my best. He turned to board. Zara grabbed his arm. The touch was electric, unexpected. Jake looked back. When you return, Zara said, we're having a conversation about what exactly we are to each other. Jake's expression softened. Yeah, we are. He boarded. The ship sealed. Engines flared to life. Zara watched it launch into the void, carrying the human who turned her world upside down toward an enemy that consumed galaxies. Behind her, Commander Vin spoke carefully. Your Majesty, if he doesn't come back? He'll come back, Zara said. She had no evidence, no logical reason to believe it. She believed it anyway. The reconnaissance ship dropped out of faster than might travel at the sector boundary. Kane killed the engines immediately. They drifted, silent and dark, momentum carrying them forward. Every system powered down except life support and passive sensors. Even breathing felt too loud. Getting readings, Kane whispered, though there was no reason to whisper in the vacuum of space. Multiple contacts, thousands. No, correction, millions. Jake leaned over the sensor display. His blood went cold. The Devourers had accelerated their timeline. The swarm stretched across 3-star systems like a living wall. Each unit pulsed with stolen energy, creating a glittering constellation of death. They moved in perfect synchronization, flowing around debris fields and dead stations with hideous grace. They're bigger than at New Perth, Jake said. More organized. Kane adjusted the visual feed. The main screen filled with the image of a devourer unit magnified 1,000 times. Metallic surface, organic core. Appendages that shifted between tool configurations depending on what they encountered. Beautiful in the way a shark was beautiful. Recording everything, Kane confirmed. This should convince the other queens. Get footage of the consumption pattern, too. They need to see what happens when the swarm hits a target. Kane panned the cameras toward a nearby mining station. It was still broadcasting automated beacon signals. Unaware, it was already dead. The swarm descended. Within seconds, the station's lights flickered. Within a minute, structural supports buckled. Within 5 minutes, nothing remained but free-floating molecules. Dear God, Kane breathed. Jake checked their position. How close are we to the relay station? 2 million kilometers. Why? Because we need to upload this data immediately. If something happens to us, this footage has to reach the Dominion. Kane plotted a course. That brings us a lot closer to the swarm.
I know.
They burned thrusters in short bursts, minimizing their energy signature. The relay station appeared on sensors. Old technology. Pre-Dominion era. Still functional because nobody had bothered to upgrade systems this far out. Jake initiated the upload sequence. Encrypted transmission. Multiple redundancies. The data package would bounce through 17 relays before reaching Zara's command center. Progress bar, 30%. Movement, Kane said sharply. The swarm just changed trajectory. Jake checked sensors. A tendril of devourer units had broken away from the main body, heading directly toward them. They detected the upload, Jake said. Cut it. Now. We're only at 40%. Cut it, or we're dead. Kane terminated the connection. The ship went dark again. They drifted, hoping the devourers would lose interest. The tendril kept coming. They already locked on to us, Kane said. Recommendations? Jake ran calculations. The devourers were fast, but not faster than a ship at full burn. They could run, make it back to Dominion space. But the swarm would follow, lead them straight to populated systems. Or they could stay, fight, buy time for the 40% upload to reach Zara. Can you maneuver in that debris field? Jake pointed to the remains of a destroyed battleship cluster. Why? Because we're going to make them chase us through it. Slow them down. Give the transmission time to propagate through the relay network. Kane's hands moved across the controls. That's insane. You bored yet? Kane grinned. It was manic and slightly unhinged. Not even a little. Engines screamed to life. The ship shot forward directly into the debris field. Broken hull sections the size of buildings spun through space. Twisted metal, frozen atmosphere. The corpses of ships that had tried to fight the devourers and failed. The swarm followed. Kane flew like he was born in a cockpit, banking around obstacles, threading gaps barely wider than their hull, using gravity wells from dead reactors to slingshot around corners. The devourers matched every move. They're learning our pattern, Jake said, adapting. Then I'll stop having a pattern. Kane threw the ship into a barrel roll, killed the engines mid-spin, fired maneuvering thrusters to flip their orientation completely, then reignited at full power, going perpendicular to their previous trajectory.
Physics and sanity both objected.
The ship held together through what felt like sheer stubbornness. Half the pursuing devourers slammed into debris. The rest adjusted course. Still not enough, Kane said. There are too many. Jake pulled up weapons systems. The reconnaissance ship wasn't designed for combat. Light pulse cannons. Minimal ammunition. Enough to deal with pirates, maybe. Not enough for this. He armed them anyway. Keep flying. I'll handle our tail. The targeting system was garbage compared to military-grade equipment. Jake compensated, leading shots, predicting movement patterns. Each pulse took down 3 or 4 devourer units before the rest adapted and started dodging. They were learning, fast. A proximity alarm shrieked. Devourer units had landed on the hull. They're attaching, Kane shouted. Starboard section, port section, they're everywhere. Jake felt the ship shudder as energy drained into the feeding units. Life support wavered. Gravity fluctuated. Emergency lights replaced main illumination. He unstrapped from his seat. Keep us moving. I'm going outside. Outside? That's suicide. So is sitting here. Jake grabbed an emergency suit from the locker. Military grade, reinforced. Magnetic boots. He sealed the helmet and moved to the airlock, depressurizing in 3, 2, 1. The outer door opened. Space greeted him with infinite cold. Devourer units covered the hull like metallic barnacles. They pulsed as they fed, growing larger, beginning replication sequences. Jake activated his magnetic boots and stepped onto the ship's exterior. He pulled a plasma torch from his belt. Close quarters tool, meant for repairs. It worked just fine for killing. The first Devourer unit died in a spray of molten metal. The second tried to detach and attack. Jake crushed it against the hull with his boot. The third, fourth, and fifth went down before the rest realized he was a threat. They swarmed. Jake moved across the hull like he was dancing. Every step placed perfectly, every strike calculated. The apex enhancements in his body worked overtime, processing threats faster than conscious thought. A devourer latched onto his arm. He felt it begin to drain his suit's power. He grabbed it, ripped it free, and threw it into space hard enough that it collided with 3 others. Inside the ship, Kane was screaming status updates. More devourers approaching. Hull integrity at 60%. Port thruster damaged. Jake worked faster. The plasma torch overheated. He switched to his backup, kept killing. Jake! Kane's voice crackled through the helmet comm. The transmission propagated. It's in the network. We can run. Do it! The ship's main engines fired. The sudden acceleration would have thrown Jake into space if not for the magnetic boots. As it was, he slammed against the hull hard enough to crack his visor. Atmosphere hissed out. His suit sealed the breach automatically. The devourers still clinging to the hull got torn away by the G-forces. The ones in space fell behind as Kane pushed the engines past safety limits. Jake crawled back to the airlock, pulled himself inside, collapsed as the inner door sealed. We're clear, Kane said. Swarm broke off pursuit. We're too fast now. Jake lay on the deck, breathing hard, watching ice crystals form on his damaged visor. How long to Dominion space? 18 hours, at current speed. Then, I'm taking a nap. He closed his eyes. Didn't dream. Dreaming required a brain that wasn't running on pure adrenaline and spite. When they dropped out of FTL near the Dominion border, every ship in the fleet had their weapons locked on. Unidentified vessel, power down immediately, came the challenge over comms. This is Lieutenant Kane, registry code 77 Alpha Victor. I have Commander Mercer aboard with critical intelligence. A pause. Then Admiral Kess's voice. Stand down. Let them through. They limped into the hangar bay on damaged thrusters. The ship looked like it had fought a war. Because it had. The bay doors opened. Zara stood waiting, surrounded by guards and military personnel. Jake stumbled down the ramp. His suit was scorched. His visor cracked. Blood crusted around his nose from a dozen impacts he'd barely noticed. Zara crossed the distance in 4 strides. For a moment, Jake thought she might hit him. She grabbed his helmet and pulled it off. Checked his eyes, his breathing. Looked for serious injuries. The footage, she demanded, uploaded, should have reached your systems an hour ago. It did. Zara's expression was unreadable. The other queens are watching it now. And Queen Sarex requested an emergency session. All 7 queens. She wants to speak with you directly. Jake swayed slightly. Exhaustion catching up. When? 10 minutes. He laughed. It sounded half-broken. Can't wait. The holographic chamber blazed with light as all 7 queens materialized. Jake stood in the center, still wearing his damaged suit. Zara had offered him time to clean up. He'd refused. Let them see what it cost to get their proof. Queen Sarex spoke first. Her 6 eyes were different now. No contempt, something closer to fear. We watched the footage. All of it. Good, Jake said. The swarm is twice the size you estimated. They'll reach our borders in weeks, not months. I know. They accelerated after consuming the 7th sector. More matter means faster replication. Queen Thelmora, her agricultural world suddenly irrelevant in the face of extinction, leaned forward. Your tactics at New Perth. How many survived? 40% of the population. We evacuated the rest before the swarm arrived. 40%, Queen Vaxilla repeated. Her research stations had been her pride. Now they were just targets. That's not victory. It's not extinction either, Jake said flatly. And it's better than what happened to the 17 sectors that tried to fight without preparation. Sarex's claws scraped against her throne. What do you need from us? Finally, Jake pulled up the tactical display he'd built with Admiral Kess. Every military ship repositioned here, here, and here. Overlapping kill zones. Nothing gets through without running a gauntlet of firepower. That leaves our outer territories completely exposed. Your outer territories are already lost. Accept it or waste resources defending the indefensible. Thelmora bristled. You ask us to abandon billions. I'm asking you to save trillions, Jake interrupted. Every ship you send to defend a doomed world is a ship that won't be here when the swarm hits our actual defensive line. Every soldier who dies buying time for an evacuation that won't finish is a soldier we needed for the real fight. The queens exchanged glances. Zara watched them calculate, watched them realize Jake was right, and hate him for it. The civilian transports, Queen Vaxilla said quietly. How many can we save? 70% if we start immediate triage. 30% if you keep debating. Sarek slammed her fist down. The hologram shook. You speak to queens of the Dominion. Show respect. Respect won't stop the devourers, Jake said. Action will. So either start acting or get out of the way. Zara tensed. Nobody spoke to Sareks like that. Nobody survived speaking to Sareks like that. The old queen stared at Jake for a long moment. Then something shifted in her expression. Acceptance, maybe, or just exhaustion. The shipyards are yours, Sarek said. Build whatever weapons you need. Admiral Kess has full authority over their deployment. Thelmora nodded. My agricultural worlds will supply the core systems. Rationing begins immediately, Vaxilla added. Research stations will focus entirely on anti-devourer technology. I want prototype weapons in 3 weeks. One by one, the other queens pledged their resources, their fleets, their people. Jake looked at Zara. She gave the smallest nod. Then, here's what happens next, Jake said. We evacuate in phases. Critical personnel first, then families, then everyone else. We build the defensive grid while the evacuation runs. When the devourers hit, we don't try to save everything. We save what we can and make them bleed for every meter. And if the defenses fail, Sareks asked, then we fall back to secondary positions and make them bleed more. And if those fail, we retreat to tertiary positions. We trade space for time and make every single devourer unit cost them more resources than they gain from consuming us. A war of attrition. It's the only war we can win. The queens dissolved into tactical discussions, deployment schedules, resource allocation, evacuation priorities. Jake stepped back, let the military commanders handle the details. Zara followed him out of the chamber. They walked in silence through empty corridors until they reached an observation deck. Beyond the viewport, transport ships moved like fireflies, carrying millions toward uncertain safety. You were right, Zara said. About everything. I hate being right about this. The other queens trust you now. They'll follow your strategies. Jake leaned against the viewport. They trust me because I got them footage, not because of who I am. Does that matter? Ask me after we survive. Zara stood beside him. Their reflections overlapped in the transparent aluminum, human and alien. Consort and Queen, two people who'd been thrown together by politics and somehow become something else. At the War Council, Zara said carefully, you asked if I was compromised, if my feelings were affecting my judgment. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. About what we are to each other. Jake turned to face her. And? I don't know, Zara admitted. I married you for an alliance, watched you fight, and realized you were dangerous. Sent you into devourer territory and discovered I was terrified you wouldn't return. None of that was supposed to happen. No, Jake agreed. It wasn't. But here we are. Here we are. Zara reached out, took his hand. Her skin was cooler than human normal, textured differently, 4 fingers instead of 5. It didn't matter. When this is over, she said, when we've either survived or died trying, I want to know who you really are. Not the apex operator, not the strategic asset. You. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Same. I want to know the queen who ran into an arena to stop a match. Who chose to believe an assassin over her own intelligence advisors? Who's holding together an empire while it collapses? Outside, the first warning klaxon sounded. Commander Ven's voice crackled over the station-wide comm. All personnel to battle stations. Long-range sensors have detected the Devourer Vanguard. ETA to defensive grid. 6 hours. The moment shattered. Zara and Jake moved simultaneously, heading for the command center. No time for sentiment now. No time for anything except the fight. Admiral Kessa met them with a tactical update. Vanguard force is smaller than expected. Approximately 10 million units. Probing attack, Jake said immediately. They're testing our defenses. The real swarm is behind them. How long until the main force arrives? 12 hours, maybe less. Zara activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Queen Zara Thix. The enemy is here. Remember your training. Trust your commanders. Fight for every soul we've evacuated. Fight for every world we couldn't save. Fight because the Devourers think we're just another meal. She paused. Let the weight of the moment settle. Show them what the Dominion does to things that try to eat us. The fleet responded. Thousands of ships moving into position. Weapons charging. Shields activating. A wall of fire and fury waiting for the swarm. Jake stood beside Zara at the command center, watched the sensors track the approaching Devourers, calculated trajectories and kill ratios and acceptable losses. We're going to lose a lot of good people, he said quietly. I know. Some of them will die because of my decisions. Some of them will live because of your decisions. Zara looked at him. We do what we can. That's all we've ever been able to do. The Devourer Vanguard hit the outer defensive grid. Space lit up with weapons fire. The pulse cannons, plasma torpedoes, kinetic barriers that shredded anything that touched them. The first wave of Devourers died by the millions. The second wave learned from the first, adapted their approach. Casualties dropped. The third wave was harder to kill. They're evolving faster than projected, Admiral Kess reported. Jake pulled up counter-tactics. Rotate firing patterns every 30 seconds. Don't let them predict our weapons. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Vanguard force was obliterated, but not before destroying 17 ships and damaging 40 more. Then the sensors screamed. The main swarm dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 3 billion units, maybe more. Enough to blot out stars. Zara looked at the display, looked at Jake, looked at her fleet, holding the line against impossible odds. "All ships," she said, "hold position. Make them come through us." The swarm advanced, and the Dominion met them with everything it had. In the command center, surrounded by controlled chaos and desperate courage, Jake felt Zara's hand bind his again. They stood together, watching humanity and 100 other species fight for the right to exist. The outcome was uncertain. The fight was everything. And that, Jake thought, was the most human thing of all.